tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Power of Zero show. This is David McKnight, your host, author of The Power of Zero. You can learn more about me at davidmcknight.com. Today, we are going to talk about what I like to call the tax sale of a lifetime. Okay, we're talking about the 2018 tax cuts that took place under the Republican Congress and signed into law by President Trump at the end of 2017. And something that's interesting is as we relay our message to the United States and to 75 million baby boomers who are preparing for retirement, one of the things that we tell them is we say, hey, look, tax rates in the future have to be dramatically higher than they are today, or we could go broke as a country. How else are we going to pay for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the national debt, so on and so forth? So some people will point to this reduction in tax rates and say, hey, this flies in the face of everything you've been saying all along. You've been saying tax rates have to go up. However, tax rates just went down. And so in their mind, the urgency of our message is somehow diminished. Now, let me take you back to what David Walker said. Okay. David Walker has famously said we have to either double taxes, reduce spending by half, or some combination of the two in order to cure our country's fiscal ills. What did we do with this latest tax cut? Now, I'm all about lowering taxes. I love low taxes. Okay. But what we did with this latest tax bill was we actually lowered taxes. Okay. I'm okay if we lower taxes so long as there's a commensurate reduction in spending. We lowered taxes, but we also increased spending by $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years to pull it off. In other words, as David Walker says, we ate the dessert before we ate the spinach. So all that really means is that the fix on the back end is going to be even more draconian, even more severe, even more aggressive than it already was. So that's the problem. The problem is that we did exactly the opposite, probably, of what we should have done. The flip side of that, though, is there's an opportunity. What is the opportunity with this new tax cut? Well, we know, for example, that the cost of admission to get to the tax-free bucket is you got to be willing to pay a tax. You're going to have to pay the tax either now or you're going to have to pay it later. So the question that we should all be asking ourselves as we approach retirement is simply this. Should we preemptively pay those taxes today by doing things like Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth conversions, cash value life insurance, so on and so forth? Or should we postpone the payment of those taxes till some point much further down the road, hoping that taxes will be lower than they are today? Well, let me start off by saying this. It used to be that I would tell people, hey, look, in some distant unknowable future, probably 10 years from now, tax rates are likely going to go up. We don't know exactly how high. We've been told possibly double, but we don't know exactly when. Well, guess what? With this new tax code, given that it has a sunset clause, we now know the year and the day when tax rates will go up. So it's no longer a guessing game. All of the uncertainty and doubt has been removed from the equation. So we now have the ability to understand what tax rates are today and where we fit in that graduated cylinder scenario that we talk about. And we know exactly where they're going to be 2026. What we don't know is where they're going to be in 2027, 2028, 2030, 2032, and beyond. So if we are just accumulating more debt in the short term to give everybody these tax breaks, that simply means that the fix that we've been talking about is going to be even more aggressive and more inevitable beyond 2026. So let's dig into this a little bit. What is the opportunity here? Well, a lot of the media, when the tax cuts first came out, a lot of the media focused on Joe Main Street America, how much is Joe Main Street America going to be saving? Okay. How many more dollars will he take home in his biweekly check? How many loaves of bread can he purchase with those increased savings? Now, while that's all very important information, and it's important to know how this is going to affect millions and millions of Americans from that perspective, we also need to understand what the opportunity is for those who are looking to get off the train tracks, those who are looking to systematically reposition their highly taxable, tax-deferred investments to tax-free. So, like I said, it all comes down to you're either going to pay the piper now or you're going to have to pay the piper later. And the reason why people postpone this decision is because of uncertainty, because of doubt. They don't want to they don't want to pay a tax today, only to regret it later on, thinking that tax rates could be lower. So here's generally a rule of thumb when it comes to, and this is obviously very general, and it's to see how this applies specifically to your situation. Feel free to go to davidmcknight.com. We can help you out with that. But here's a general rule. A general rule is that you don't want to bump up into a higher tax bracket. Generally speaking, there's one exception that we'll share with you here in a moment. You generally want to stay in your current tax bracket if you're going to do things like Roth conversions, so on and so forth. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have income and you are in the 12% tax bracket. And let's also say, by the way, the 12% tax bracket ends in 2018 for a couple married filing jointly at 77.4. So let's say that your line 43 on your tax return is $50,000. Okay, so you're in the 12% tax bracket. Our recommendation would be that you not let a year go by where you're not maxing out that 12% tax bracket. In other words, if you're line 43 taxable income on your tax return is $50,000. You should be systematically repositioning from IRA to Roth IRA, $27,400 per year. Now, the problem becomes if you start jumping up into the 22% tax bracket. Why? Because the 22% tax bracket is almost double what the 12% tax bracket is. If we are telling you to double your tax rate in the name of getting to the 0% tax bracket or in the name of saving taxes in the long run, I don't believe we've done you a service. Likewise, if you're in the 22% tax bracket, the 22% tax bracket starts at $77,401, it ends at $165. Let's say your line 43 income is $100,000 and you have $65,000 of space before you hit the next tax bracket. Well, certainly, if you believe that tax rate is as low as you're likely to see in your lifetime, then you would max out your conversions to the tune of $65,000 per year, each and every year until you get all the heavy lifting done, or until we hit 2026. 2026. Now, there is one exception here, and the exception is what I call the sweet spot in the 2018 tax code, which is also the sweet spot every year between now and 2026. Here's the sweet spot. I believe that the sweet spot through which you can drive a tractor trailer in the new tax code is the 24% tax bracket. Now, let's go back to my example. Let's say that in the spirit of getting you to the 0% tax bracket, we convinced you to bump up from a 12% tax bracket to a 22% tax bracket. Now you're thinking, yeah, I've doubled my taxes in order to pull this off. Well, what if we said, instead of doubling your tax rate, what if we said, let's bump up from a 22% tax bracket to a 24% tax bracket? Did you know that the 24% tax bracket goes from $165,001 all the way up to $315,000? For 2% more, you can shift an extra $150,000 to tax-free. You can protect an extra $150,000 from the impact of rising tax rates in the future by taking advantage of the 24% tax bracket today. In other words, if as good as you're ever going to experience in your lifetime is 22, and 24 is only 2% worse, why would you not take advantage, knowing where we believe tax rates are heading down the road? Why would you not take advantage of that tax bracket? it's only 2% more. So a lot of times when we meet with clients, we'll say, as we go through your numbers, are you okay if we bump you up into the 24% tax bracket? Because if you have an extra $150,000 that you can shift each and every year for the next 8 years, by the way, it's 7 years after January 1st, but for the next 8 years, $150,000, you can get a lot of money repositioned to tax-free at only 24%. And I believe strongly that come 2028, 2030 and beyond, we will look back at the 24% tax bracket and say, that was the deal of the century. It will never be that low. Tax rates were on sale. And so this is what I would tell you is that as of January 1st this year, we're all on the clock. And every year that goes by, where we fail to take advantage of historically low tax rates is potentially a year beyond 2026 where we could be forced to pay the highest tax rates we're likely to experience in our lifetime. So you don't want to have any regret. You want to be very thoughtful and prudent. But if you think about it, if you convert it up to the 24% tax bracket, that's $315,000 of taxable income. If you tried to pull that off in 2017, or if you attempt to pull that off 2026 or beyond, that would put you in the 33% tax bracket. It would cost you an extra $15,000 per year to be able to pull off that Roth conversion. So this is a sale. It's a tax sale. And we know when the tax sale is going to be over. So we would encourage you to just take a look at your situation and say, do I truly believe in my heart of hearts that tax rates today are going to be lower than where they are in 2026, 2028 and beyond? And if they are, then really every year between now and 2026 represents a little tax cylinder that you can take advantage of. And every year that goes by where you don't take advantage of that little tax cylinder is potentially a year beyond 2026 when you could be forced to pay the highest taxes in your lifetime. So remember, in summary, when it comes to shifting money to tax-free, it all comes down to, do we think that tax rates in the future are going to be higher than they are today? It used to be that we thought that they were going to go up. We couldn't tell you exactly when, and we couldn't tell you exactly how much. We just had some ideas. But guess what? We now know when, and we now know how much. We know exactly, the year and the day when it's going to happen, and we know exactly what the tax rate's going to go up to. It's going to revert back to whatever it was pre-2018. So a lot of people will say, well, what if they change it between now and 2026? What if we lose this opportunity? I don't think that's likely, because remember what would have to happen in order for that to happen. In order for them to change this tax law, Democrats would have to seize control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. I think that that's a bit of a long shot. It may happen eventually. I doubt it. But if it does happen, there's that possibility. And the Democrats have floated some plans and some ideas and some proposals on what they believe should happen to the current tax code. Certainly for the top 1%, they believe they should be paying more in tax. So I believe we do have an 8-year period. I think that we should stretch the tax liability out over the full 8 years. It'll be 7 years if you wait until beyond January 1st. Stretch that tax liability out over a long time. Get the heavy lifting done slowly so that you don't rise into a tax bracket that gives you heartburn, but do it quickly enough that you get all the heavy lifting done before 2026, when tax rates are going to go up for good and they will never look back. They will never, ever be as low as they are today. All right. Appreciate you all. This is a little bit of a shorter show today. I appreciate you being on the show today. We will come back with you next week with episode 7. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.